My name is Lauren Kim and I'm 33 years old. I help run my family's company, the kind of place where trucks arrive before sunrise, spreadsheets decide what lives on shelves, and one wrong email can shake the floor under 200 people. At 6:12 on a Tuesday morning, my mother sent an email with 3 words in the subject line. Acting CO, Jenna. Jenna is my younger sister. There was no board vote, no meeting, no minutes, just a crown in an inbox. This is a story about a family business, a sudden move, and a simple rule written long ago that became my lifeline. I won't reveal the turn yet. I'll let you feel it when it comes. If you've ever watched family and work collide, take a breath with me, then stay close. I'll keep the pace steady and the language clear. I read the email twice, then watched messages bloom on my screen like warning lights on a dashboard. HR asked who could sign offers. Sales asked who could sign the distributor deal. Our bank officer asked for the board resolution that added a new signer. I didn't have a resolution. I had an email and a bad feeling. I opened the drawer where we keep the bylaws, a beige book with thin pages and strong bones, and I found the sentence I needed. The board appoints the CO even in a hurry, even in a storm. There must be notice. There must be a vote. There must be minutes. I called our lawyer, Mr. Brooks, and asked him to read the same lines I was reading because it helps to hear the law out loud when the room is loud inside your head. He agreed. The email was not a lawful appointment. He reminded me the bylaws allow a special meeting when 2 directors call it or when an officer requests it and the chair agrees. I walked to Ms. Chen's office, our independent director and a former CFO who trusts numbers more than noise. She read the email, checked the bylaw section and nodded once. Set the meeting, she said. Set it by the book. I drafted a short notice with a clear purpose. Discuss leadership, fix the process, protect the company. I attached a simple agenda, a few draft resolutions, and a small deck with the facts the bank and vendors would ask for. I sent it to the board. My father as chair, my mother as a director, Ms. Chin and Mr. Alvarez, and I copied Mr. Brooks so no one could say they didn't see what was coming. Then I walked to CFO Patel with a pen and a calm voice and asked for the numbers that never lie. 13 weeks of cash, vendor balances, covenant thresholds, and any contract waiting for a signature that could cost us money we didn't have. Mid-afternoon, Jenna stepped into my doorway with a glow that belongs on a stage and a tone that belongs in a pitch. She said the team needed a face and the brand needed speed, and that mom had already decided and the building would follow. I told her the building also follows paper and the bank follows minutes and payroll follows both. She asked if I wanted the title. I told her I wanted shipments to move and paychecks to clear and the company to live through the quarter. She left with a tight smile that felt like a closed door. I built my deck in short, simple lines. The email had created risk with our bank, our insurer, and our vendors. A board vote could remove that risk in a single motion. The plan was not dramatic. The plan was ordinary in the best way. Appoint an interim CO for 120 days, set spending limits that require a second set of eyes, adopt a related party rule so family ties cannot pull money out the side door, publish weekly targets so we tell the truth before rumors do, and open an external search so the company chooses a leader from strength, not panic. When the meeting time arrived, I checked the video link and laid out a copy of the bylaws at each seat. My father walked in slowly and placed his hand on the chair's seat like a person greeting an old friend. My mother sat to his left with a face that has never heard the word no when she wanted yes. My sister sat by the window where the light is kind. Ms. Chin and Mr. Alvarez sat across from each other with pens ready. Mr. Brooks opened his legal pad and waited. CFO Patel took a quiet chair on the wall with the cash forecast ready to share. My father tapped the gavel. We had a quorum. My mother tried to fold the email under housekeeping, as if a crown could be dusted like a shelf. Ms. Chin raised 2 fingers and asked for order. The appointment belonged under new business because the board had never voted. The room accepted the correction the way a ship accepts the pull of a lighthouse. I stood and spoke in the same steady tone I use on the factory floor. The email had no legal force. The board could vacate it and make a real decision. The company needed process, not a personality contest. I clicked to the slide with risks, then to the slide with steps, then to the page with numbers, and I stopped before anyone drowned in charts. Jenna talked about energy and brand and momentum. Mr. Alvarez asked who could sign the freight contract if the bank refused the email. Ms. Chin asked to see the minutes authorizing the appointment. There were none. My father kept the tempo even. Ms. Chin moved to vacate the email. Mr. Alvarez seconded. My mother voted no. Ms. Chin and Mr. Alvarez voted yes. My father abstained as chair. The motion passed. The air in the room changed, not with cheers, but with relief so quiet you could hear the clock tick again. Ms. Chin moved to appoint me interim CEO for 120 days with a public search starting in 10. Mr. Alvarez seconded. I stepped back from the table so no one could say I voted myself a seat. The same pattern held. Yes, yes, no, abstain. The motion passed. We adopted spending thresholds and a related party policy. We formed an audit committee with Ms. Chin as chair. We updated the bank signers. We approved a short message to staff and partners that said our founder was on leave. The board had appointed an interim leader. The search was underway and operations would follow the bylaws. My father adjourned the meeting. My mother left first. Jenna watched the parking lot like it might answer a question no one asked out loud. I stayed behind and finished the minutes so the bank could breathe by sunset. I sent the signed minutes to the bank and called our top suppliers with a clear voice and a calendar. I told HR to use the updated offer template and route every change through my desk. I put a town hall on the calendar and promised that questions would not be punished for showing up. I went home tired and clean. The rule had held. The room had listened. The company had a path. The next morning, a contract sat in my inbox like a trap someone forgot to hide. It was a marketing retainer Jenna had signed 2 days before the meeting. 12 months, $180,000, vague deliverables, and the first invoice already late. The agency owner was a friend from her college circle. There had been no bids, no review, and no math. I took it to CFO Patel and asked for the burn. He showed me ad spend climbing while revenue stood still, freight costs easing at last, and cash that could not carry both a bet and a backlog. A second email in the thread showed my mother had greenlit the deal before the meeting to give Jenna cover if numbers dipped. I didn't raise my voice. I wrote 2 columns on a whiteboard, facts and choices. Then I called the audit committee into the glass room with the good marker and set the timer for 15 minutes. Ms. Chin said to give the agency a fair test with real targets and a pause rule if they missed 2 weeks in a row. I phoned the agency and asked for a weekly plan by 3 in the afternoon with 3 simple numbers on it: leads, conversion, and revenue per dollar spent. If they sent fluff, we would set the plan for them. If they missed twice, we would pause a month and shift money to retention. They sent slogans at 2:54. I sent back a template that replaced slogans with numbers and dates, and I copied the committee so no one could wonder what I had said. They signed. We moved forward not because we loved the deal but because fairness matters most when you undo a shortcut. At the Friday town hall, I stood on the loading dock because I want the heaviest work to hear the clearest words. I said we had set spending rules, created a place where conflict goes before it spills, and promised to pay vendors on a plan, not a hope. A hand went up in the back and asked if marketing still got to spend. I said yes, but every dollar must bring at least $1 and a little more, and if it didn't, we would stop it without shame and try something cheaper that worked. A few people laughed, not at me but with relief. Laughter in a warehouse sounds like bolts in the right bins. Half an hour later, my mother closed my office door and told me she pushed the retainer because she wanted to protect Jenna from blame. I told her revenue has no idea who we love and only knows what customers do. I promised that if the agency earned its fee, I would thank them on page 1 of the board pack. She shook her head at the plainness of it, then smiled at how plain can save a company. Week 2 brought the kind of problem that eats your calendar if you ignore it. A key supplier stopped shipping. I called the owner and asked for 2 pallets now and a fair plan for the rest. He asked if we were playing games on the internet while invoices grew up to our eyelids. I said no, and that I would send him a simple schedule with amounts and Fridays on it and keep it even if something shiny came along. He agreed. I wrote the plan, sent it to every critical vendor, and asked them to wave it in my face if I missed. We didn't miss. Freight moved. Shelves got fed. Customers stopped asking where their orders slept. By week 3, Jenna had turned her talking into a 1-page report every Monday morning. It showed the 3 numbers we agreed on, plus 1 small note at the bottom about which cut helped and which swap saved money. I forwarded the first clean page to Ms. Chin with 1 word: progress. On Wednesday, Jenna drew KPIs or it didn't happen on a mug and held it up to my office glass. I laughed in a way I hadn't in weeks. We were not healed. We were getting better. The CEO search moved like a careful river. We interviewed 4 strong candidates. I asked each one to tell me about a time they fixed cash without breaking people, a decision they make by gut and a decision they only make by numbers, and who they would meet first in our building. Amara Singh answered like she had already walked our aisles. Fix cash by stopping waste and calling vendors with dates, choose people with gut and projects with numbers, and meet shipping first because shipping knows if promises are real. The board liked her. Her references told us she was calm under heat and respected by the people who lifted the heaviest things. At the end of the first month, we sent the board a tight pack. 4 pages, the same format each time, trend lines instead of surprise pictures, notes on risks and notes on wins. CFO Patel said short feels trustworthy, and I told him I wished more leaders learned that sentence early. During that meeting, Jenna presented her page without a single buzzword. She said which influencer failed, which email worked, and where she would put the next $10 so the return shows up faster. When the agency missed their second week, she paused them without drama and shifted spend to a simple win-back sequence that paid for itself in 10 days. My mother watched the change in her daughter like a weather front clearing, and said thank you to a room that remembered how that word sounds. At home, life softened. My father colored back in. He watched sunsets instead of stock tickers. My mother brought samples to the table with curiosity instead of urgency. Jenna came to dinner and talked about recipes and not about crowns. We were not a perfect family. We were a family that could share soup. By day 60, our on-time shipment rate climbed from 86 to 94%. I wrote 94 on the warehouse board and drew a star. Miguel added a second star and said, 95 next week. And the next week we hit 95. A regional retailer emailed to say they heard we stabilized and asked if we could talk. I said yes, and I added Amara to the thread because the board had just voted to extend her an offer. She accepted. Her start date sat 2 weeks away like a safe harbor you can see with the naked eye. Amara began on a Monday and brought the kind of leadership that feels like good rain. She met shipping first, customer support second, and removed 2 meetings that existed only because we forgot to erase them. She asked Jenna for her 1-pager every Monday and my mother for 3 product bets with simple costs and times. She asked me to bring her 1 stubborn bottleneck each Friday, so we always had a hard thing to fix in small bites. That first Friday I brought returns. We added better photos, clearer sizing, and a short fit quiz. Returns started to fall the next week, not by magic but by respect for the person on the other side of the screen. We kept the lanes we had built. Spending limits stayed. The related party rules stayed. Weekly targets stayed. The external search closed because it had done its job. I moved back to SEO with a lighter chest and the same quiet promise. Keep trucks honest and calendars clean. Jenna kept marketing with numbers on every idea and a habit of cutting her favorite experiment if it did not feed the fire. My mother focused on product with joy and without the heavy need to control the whole map. My father chaired board meetings with patience and let the new leader lead. The bank renewed our line on the same terms. The insurer renewed our policy at the same rate. Those are small sentences that hide large relief. Vendors kept shipping because Fridays kept paying. Staff stopped whispering about crowns and started joking about stars on the warehouse board. I ran town halls on the loading dock with short sentences, open questions, and a promise that anyone who told the truth early would never be punished for it. One evening, after a good day without headlines, my mother texted a single word. Dinner? I walked in to find soup on the stove and no business documents on the counter. She told me she was scared the morning she sent the email, and that fear made speed feel like wisdom, and that she was grateful the bylaws were stubborn when our hearts were soft. I told her I was grateful she built a company that could be saved by rules because rules only save what deserves saving. We ate in quiet that felt like respect and not like distance. At the next board meeting, Amara presented 3 slides and used plain words. She showed how every dollar found a job and how every job earned the right to stay. She ended with a sentence I believe in now more than ever. Process is how we respect each other's work. My father smiled in a way I have not seen since I was a teenager. My mother nodded the way a person nods when relief replaces pride. Jenna tapped her notebook and underlined the words respect and process like a student who finally likes the class. On a Friday afternoon, I walked past the loading dock and saw 96 on the board with 2 stars and a smiley face that did not belong to me. I took a photo and sent it to the board with no caption. Some results do not need speeches. They need witnesses. When the quarter closed, we were not famous. We were healthy. The company breathed without noise. People had time to see their kids' games and return library books and sleep well enough to laugh at small jokes. The building had the hum of a machine that fits together because no one is forcing parts to touch that should not touch. I drove home that night with the windows cracked and the radio low and thought about the first email that tried to crown someone without a vote. It was fast and loud. The rule that saved us was slow and quiet. If you are in a room like mine, remember this. A vote is not a vibe, a plan is not a post, and a crown that arrives by inbox will break the head that wears it. Thank you for listening. If stories like this help you breathe when family and work push against each other, you're not alone. I keep my sentences simple, my steps steady, and my promises small enough to keep. Follow for more calm wins, share this with the one person who needs the rulebook today. And if you're ready, tell me where you're listening from so we can cheer one honest result together next week.